A lot of problems. At the beginning, North Korea was a massive problem, and now we're moving along. It's moving along really nicely.
Names floated out there as a potential replacement include Richard Grenell, the ambassador to Germany, former White House advisor Dina Powell, and National Security Advisor John Bolton. Bolton served as U.S. ambassador to the UN under President George W. Bush. By the way, Democrats say Haley's resignation shows the Trump administration cannot get on the same page when it comes to foreign policy. A nearly decade-long saga of a Christian mother facing the death penalty in Pakistan for allegedly blaspheming Muhammad could soon end with her release and acquittal. AFN's Bill Bumpus reports.
The mother of 5 children, Asia Bibi, has been in jail for more than 9 years. But according to International Christian Concern, Pakistan's Supreme Court heard her final appeal on Monday. ICC's William Stark says the court has reserved its judgment, but the decision should come soon, and according to Stark sources, it will be a positive ruling.
So a lot of us are sitting on pins and needles right now, hoping that we finally get the good news that Asia is acquitted. But based on my sources, a couple of whom were actually in the courtroom, the case, the way it went down, went really well, and that they're very hopeful that she will be acquitted soon.
Stark tells AFN he's very excited for a positive outcome.
Because if they do acquit her on the merits, Pakistan's Supreme Court could lay down precedent in regards to the country's notorious blasphemy laws that really start to turn the tide against extremism in the country.
That's how important a decision this is, says Stark, and now the waiting game begins. I'm Bill Bumpus.
Hurricane Michael is expected to make landfall late tonight or tomorrow along the Florida Panhandle and southeastern Alabama. Florida Governor Rick Scott has urged all residents to follow evacuation orders and to ensure that they are prepared for the storm before it makes landfall if they are remaining in their homes.
We are already seeing a significant number of mandatory evacuations being ordered in counties across the Panhandle. If you're under evacuation order, listen to it. Leave now. Do not take a chance. You don't know if roads are going to get closed. We're going to do everything we can to help you, but do not wait. If there's an evacuation order, go to safety.
Hurricane Michael has been blamed for more than a dozen fatalities in Central America thus far. First responders warn that those who remain in their homes may not receive help or rescue in the immediate aftermath of the storm. A Minnesota teacher is in trouble after apparently suggesting that someone assassinate new Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Fox's Jeff Manasso.
So who's going to take one for the team and kill Kavanaugh? That tweet Saturday from a now suspended account of Rosemount, Minnesota special ed elementary school teacher Samantha Ness, who school district officials say is now on paid leave, pending the outcome of an investigation.
Once you put it in writing and send it out there for the world to see, there can be consequences, be it snaps, Facebook posts, tweets, etc.
Debbie Lang, Twin Cities criminal defense attorney. No word yet if Ness will face charges. Federal investigators are handling the case. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
And a gallon of regular gasoline will set you back a national average $2.91 today. That's up 7 cents from this day last month, 50 cents from this day last year.
Abraham Hamilton III.
God put us in this world at this time to be salt and light. We don't fold because of the darkness that we're facing. This is not the first time in the world's history that it's gotten dark. God has called you and I to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment.
Tune in to the Hamilton Quarter, weekdays at 5 p.m. Central on Urban Family Talk. She's sharp, pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
A man or a woman must always be presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. And with that, I must state that you, sir, under historic scrutiny, were proven innocent.
I am optimistic about the future of America and the future of our independent judiciary, the crown jewel of our constitutional republic. As a justice on the Supreme Court, I will always strive to preserve the Constitution of the United States and the American rule of law.
The U.S. is strong again, and the U.S. is strong in a way that should make all Americans very proud. It's a great day in the United States, and I'm proud to have been part of the team. Thank you, Mr. President. It's been an honor of a lifetime.
And now, Stacey Washington.
And now, welcome to the program. Oh, my goodness. Ambassador Haley is resigning effective the end of the year. I got to tell you, I was not expecting that. And so she's been doing such a stellar job. It's kind of hard to imagine who would take her place, who can fill those shoes that she is so amply. She's just been so phenomenal. So breaking news today for her to make that announcement on the heels of the end of the Kavanaugh fight. He actually sat on the bench today. He waited until everyone else had asked their questions and asked questions in the first case that they heard. And his family was present in the seats that are reserved for guests of the justices. And so all in all, a very, very nice, conclusion to what was just one of the most shameful periods when it comes to political infighting that we've had in recent history. And so, no, I'm not saying it's more shameful than slavery. Please don't email me. I'm talking about political infighting. And it was clearly just a hit job because we're not going to see any charges brought against him, criminal charges, because when there's something that's happened that's bad and you really want justice, you go to the criminal arena so that people can be prosecuted criminally. So we know that. So welcome to the program. Today on the show, jam-packed, we have Diamond and Silk. They're going to be with us next segment. And they're going to come on and talk about their new documentary, Democrats the Movie, democratsthemovie.com. Can't wait to talk to the girls about that. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about Nikki Haley, and we're going to get to the votecommongood.com, which this is the story that I kind of teased yesterday, and we missed getting to it. We had such a jammed show yesterday. We're going to get to it today. And, of course, we'll take your calls later on in the show as well. Right now, I want to get to the Daily Confession, and this has to do with, getting the guidance that we need from God. And I know a lot of people are feeling pretty good because we were able to just basically grit our teeth and hold the line to get through the Kavanaugh, accusations and seeing him getting confirmed. But that's not the end of it all. And we really need to know that when we're going to the left or to the right, when we're going forward or when we're deciding not to go forward and we're staying in the same place, that we're doing that because that's what God has for us. And so it can be confusing, especially if you have a lot of choices in front of you. Now, God has worked things out for our good already. He is continually doing that. And he has planned for every eventuality, meaning any decision that you could or could not make, decision that you make, whichever choice you decide on, he's already got things worked out for your good. But that doesn't mean we should be wayward or willy-nilly or unwise in making our decisions. And so today's daily confession is Isaiah 30:21. I love this scripture. It is such a great thing to kind of just you grab onto it and you hold it because you know it's in God's word and therefore it's true. It is whether you turn to the left or to the right, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." And Treasury of Scripture kind of describes it. If you go into a different translation, and your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it," when you turn to the right hand, when you turn to the left. Other scriptures that help us to understand this scripture are Isaiah 35:8-9, "And a highway shall be there and a way, and it shall be called the way of holiness. The unclean shall not pass over it." So this is not meant to, in scripture, say, you hear a voice behind you saying, "Yeah, go ahead and, gossip about that friend. Yeah, go ahead and, falsely accuse someone. Yeah, go ahead and, take 10 pens from work and, take them home and use them at home." That's never going to be that voice that the scripture references. It's talking about walking closely with God and being able to hear the Holy Spirit. So not an audible voice, but that check in your spirit that says, "This is it," or "This isn't it." and the only way to know if you're on the right path is you got to be connected into the power source. So praying with God every day, make that appointment first thing in the morning. You're going to have your word of prayer with the Lord. You're going to be with him first. And then you're going to read some scripture, and you're going to refresh your mind and renew your mind with that scripture. And then throughout the day, as we move and do the things that we have to do, speaking to God, asking for his guidance, and making that a part of your everyday routine. Isaiah 58:11 says, "And the Lord shall guide you continually and satisfy your soul in drought and make fat your bones." So he is our source. He is the one who will do these things for us. Good and upright is the Lord. Therefore, he will teach sinners in the way. Psalm 143:8-10 says, "Cause me to hear your loving kindness in the morning, for in you do I trust. Cause me to know the way wherein I should walk." So that's really encouraging, and we need that right now. I know I've seen some posts from people where they feel slightly discouraged because there's still people standing outside the Supreme Court screaming and yelling. There's still a lot of violence. In fact, a story that I missed over the weekend is that Brian Kilmeade, one of the hosts of Fox and Friends, was actually followed home from the Fox building. Now, I know you've probably seen on television the actual Fox building because it's in New York, in Manhattan, actually, and it's a well-known facade. But what you don't know is the people who work there, whether it's Brian Kilmeade or, any person, Judge Jeanine, there are some exits that you can come out of that are on the side streets because the building is literally, it's surrounded by streets. So it's like a mini block itself, but there are other buildings behind it. Because the Sirius building is actually adjacent to it. So you see a lot of kind of faces you would know walking around that area, entering the building, et cetera. And they have security. But once you exit the building, whether you leave out of one of the rear entrances or the sides or the front, there's no security outside. And so it's just like any other office complex or business place where they have security on the inside. And those security people can come outside, but if you're leaving, especially if you're going to take the subway, as Brian Kilmeade was doing in this incident, you don't have security with you unless you're paying someone. And so he left the Fox News Court building and walked over to the nearest subway station. You go down the stairs, and then you can catch the subway. And two Netflix producers, hosts, if you will, they're not producers. They have their own streaming show, like an online program, and it's comedy. And they followed him and they harassed him and they got on the subway with him and then encouraged other people on the subway to yell at him. They actually screamed that he should be crucified. Crucify him, crucify him. And so we actually have some reaction from Greg Gutfeld on that, and we'll get to it. And it kind of has to do with the right to protect yourself and defend yourself against others. But it's stories like these that are really discouraging to us, and in a time like this where, there's a time for fighting and arguing your case, and then there's a time when the decision has been made and the winner has won and the loser has lost, and that's it. And then you move on to the next thing. And for this to still be going on, the protesting, the nastiness, the harassment of people in public places, running people out of restaurants, and to see Democrats like Mazie Hirono of Hawaii really justify it instead of condemning it, it's discouraging. But the Lord will fight our battles. He is our lion. He is our defender. The righteous run to him and are made safe. We are covered by his wings. The glory of the Lord is our rear guard. And I mean, we're talking about when the Bible says the glory of the Lord. Remember when Moses asked God if he could see him, "Can I see you?" He said, "No man can look upon me and live." He said, "I will allow you to see my glory as I pass by." So basically, the very most back portion of the robes of God. And Moses looked upon those, and his face shone for weeks after. So when the Bible says the glory of the Lord is our rear guard, that's no joke. So we should not walk in fear, nor should we feel excessive anxiety or worry about the way things are right now. Times have been rough before. They will be rough again. The cycle of humanity is that people are going to be people. But in all things, we can walk in courage knowing that God is our defender and he is for us, not against us, but we have to rely on him. So not walking in our own strength and power, but walking hand in hand with him. And that's some pretty powerful stuff. The glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Come on now. I dare you to find something better than that. If you want somebody to have your back, I'd much prefer it to be the ultimate, which is our Father in heaven. So right now I want to pivot over to the momentous events of last night. The official swearing in, the ceremonial swearing in of Judge Kavanaugh happened at the White House in the East Room, and it was a really, really nice ceremony. There were some very, very wonderful moments. One of them was when President Trump opened up his comments before the actual swearing in, and he apologized to the Kavanaugh family for what they'd been through. It's number 3.
I would like to begin tonight's proceeding differently than perhaps any other event of such magnitude. On behalf of our nation, I want to apologize to Brett and the entire Kavanaugh family for the terrible pain and suffering you have been forced to endure. Those who step forward to serve our country deserve a fair and dignified evaluation, not a campaign of political and personal destruction based on lies and deception. What happened to the Kavanaugh family violates every notion of fairness, decency, and due process. Our country, a man or a woman, must always be presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty.
This is a very simple concept. And immediately after the apology, there were just harpies and minions, and not the cute little yellow minions from the cartoons, but, trolls, losing their minds because he said that Brett Kavanaugh was innocent of the allegations. If he weren't innocent, the president wouldn't have moved forward with confirming him. He would have pulled the nomination. The fact that he was put on the court is a statement in the affirmative that the belief in the mainstream area is that he is innocent. So let's listen to Judge Kavanaugh describing his plans on the Supreme Court. It's number 4. We'll go out with that.
I take this office with gratitude and no bitterness. On the Supreme Court, I will seek to be a force for stability and unity. My goal is to be a great justice for all Americans and for all of America. I will work very hard to achieve that goal. I was not appointed to serve one party or one interest, but to serve one nation. America's Constitution and laws protect every person of every belief and every background. Every litigant in the Supreme Court can be assured that I will listen to their arguments with respect and an open mind. Every American can be assured that I will be an independent and impartial justice.
It's nice to hear. It was nice to see him there with his family. It was nice to see his parents there. And it was nice to see the justices all seated together, welcoming him into their midst. It's nice to have that moment. All right, when we get back, we're going to have Diamond and Silk. You stay there.
What if I told you that you could clean your family's laundry and help reach the next generation at the same time? That opportunity is here through a company called Redeem Clean. Every time you use Redeem Clean products, you help support the ministry of the American Family Association. In addition to your regular AFA giving, Redeem Clean laundry detergent allows you to increase your support of AFA just by continuing to wash your family's clothes. Redeem Clean products work as well as or better than other products on the market. They're environmentally safe, biodegradable, and they're made in the USA. and they were developed exclusively for the support of the American Family Association. For clean laundry and support of a cleaner society, it's Redeem Clean. Learn more, find options, and order Redeem Clean products at afastore.net. That's afastore.net.
Hi, I'm Crawford Loritz with a Legacy Moment. Years ago, I heard a story about this young soldier who put up with a lot of abuse from a fellow soldier. He was the brunt of some really cruel practical jokes, yet he never retaliated. In fact, he responded with kindness. And then after one particularly awful incident, he even shined the man's shoes. Now, this young soldier's incredible, gracious, giving response eventually caused his tormentor to give his life to Christ. What a story. I don't think I have the capacity to do what that soldier did. I think about God and how he responds to us. God's capacity to put up with our mess is pretty amazing. We're sinful, disobedient people. We're prone to wander, as the hymn writer says. In Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 17, there's a statement tucked away in the middle of this prayer of repentance and confession. It describes the merciful character of our great God. Listen to these words. But you are a God of forgiveness, gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in loving kindness, and you do not forsake them. God forgives us, this verse says. Everything we have ever done wrong, God says through Christ, you are forgiven. He is gracious and compassionate toward us. His love calls us in to go beyond what we deserve, so much further beyond what we deserve. He doesn't give up on us. The text says, you do not forsake them. He pursues us. He comes after us. What an awesome God we serve. Well, here's what I want you to remember today. When is the last time you thanked God for not giving up on you? Take some time today to tell him how much you appreciate his love and his mercy.
Thanks, Crawford, and thank you for listening to today's Legacy Moment, a production of Moody Radio, a ministry of Moody Global Ministries.
You can watch a live stream of the show on Facebook or YouTube at Stacy on the Right. Now, back to the show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Hello. Welcome back to the program. StacyOnTheRight.com, at Stacy on the Right on Twitter and Instagram. And you can head over to AFR.net and find out more about the fantastic work of American Family Association and American Family Radio, of which this show is a part. So glad to be with you today. It's Tuesday. It's another great day to be an American. And also, if I haven't said it already, greetings from the Heartland. And right now, it's my pleasure to welcome two of my good friends. They're fantastic women. They're getting a lot done in the movement, and they're speaking to audiences that before now were really probably not open to Republican Party politics. And on top of everything that they do, a streaming television show, weekly video updates, they're everywhere. They're at the White House. They're all over the country doing speaking engagements. They've now also done a documentary. So the sparks are flying off of my two good friends, Diamond and Silk. Thank you so much for joining the show today, ladies.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having us.
So I love it when y'all come on, mostly because I don't get to see you enough. The last time I saw you was at the White House for the I think it was a diversity reception of some sort, and we were all there.
Yes,
Yeah. And so that's the last time I saw you guys. But now, so I caught wind of this earlier on online social media, and I was like, yes, we must talk about this. So tell us, first of all, why are y'all doing a documentary at this point? What's going on?
Well, we're being featured in a documentary, and the reason why is because, we know that the president is draining the swamp. So now it's time for us to expose the swamp and expose the hypocrisy.
That's right.
When we look at these congresswomen running around talking about we have to impeach 45, we decided let's go in her district and let's see what she's trying to hide. Anytime you see a person trying to demean, disparage someone, disrespect somebody, let's see their sugar honey iced tea, what's going on. And when we go into some of these districts that's being ran by these Democrats, they're ran in the ground. A lot of these people are homeless. I mean, it's stuff everywhere. It's just, it's a mess.
It's a mess.
It's
living
a mess.
in tents,
living in tents,
running water, defecating in the streets. It is ridiculous. It is a shame. It's Democrat-ran cities like this that's keeping a lot of Americans stuck.
So what we're doing is we're giving you the truth with proof. We're not holding anything back. We're giving you the facts. We want you to go to dummycratsthemovie.com. It premieres in theaters nationwide October the 15th, one-night premiere. So we want you to go and get your tickets so that you can see. See, it's best that you see instead of listening to sound bites. I want you to go see what we saw.
That's right.
Okay, so first off, thank you for taking part in the documentary. I think it's so important for us to have real-world views of what's happening because the news media doesn't cover this. And I'm gonna just say it. I'm tired of dancing around the issue. Why isn't CNN reporting on the way people are living in these Democratic-controlled cities? MSNBC, why isn't Rachel Maddow crying about kids living outside and not having, indoor plumbing and things like that? Because children are impacted by this too. It takes the two of you to join into a documentary with, I think it's Michael Savage, and, to bring this to the forefront for everyone to take a look at. Why not the mainstream media? Why are they so silent about this suffering?
Well, they're part of the problem. They're the ones around here. They're okay with pushing these socialism ideas, resist ideas. Listen, they don't want our country to be on the path of winning. They make their money by us being impoverished, people being suppressed, people being oppressed. So that's why they wouldn't dare report on it. But it's time for us to call out the hypocrisy. Listen, we, as the American people, pay these people tax dollars for them to go do a job for the American people. And when they're not doing their job, we have to call them out, and we have to hold them accountable. And some of these people, it's time for them to be voted out.
That's right.
I'm with you on that. So we're talking about in St. Louis, 60 some odd years of uninterrupted Democratic rule. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, it's 109 years of uninterrupted Democratic rule. And in California, Republicans can't get elected locally because the Democrats actually fixed it so that it's the top two vote getters. So even if you run a primary, you do all the work, if you're not the number one or number two vote getter, then you're not even on the ballot. It doesn't matter if you're going to lose anyway. What matters is that people have a choice. The people of California no longer have choices at the statewide and local level. They only have Democrats that they can elect. So that's a rigged system.
So
yeah, it's a rigged system. So that means you don't have any alternative ideas being presented. So, I mean, when you talk about this documentary and you guys went out in the streets, did you talk to any of the people who are impacted? Do they even realize that the system that they're trapped in?
Okay, so Stacey, let me tell you, girl. First of all, some of these people didn't even realize that Maxine Waters did not live in their district. They were unaware that she stayed in a $4.3 million mansion on a $174,000 salary, which is their tax dollars. They were unaware of certain things. We were able to talk to regular, ordinary citizens and bring awareness to them. And see, we're tired of people just listening to sound bites. It's time to start calling out facts here and letting people see who's really running things and who's ruining things in our country. And some of these congressmen and women, they sit up there, they work for their own greed and not the need of people, and they have ruined our country. And really, some of these left-leaning liberals are trying to put America on suicide watch, and we're trying to save America.
And so suicide watch is this sudden rise of the Democrats reaping what they've sown, which is they've been sowing to socialism in public schools for 30 years. And now all of a sudden, kids are coming out of American public schools, going to these colleges where they teach Marxism, and they're coming out socialists like Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders, everybody's granddad, which not the granddad you love, but the granddad that you would probably run from, Bernie Sanders. So when they're reaping what they're sowing and they seem surprised, Nancy Pelosi seems surprised by the popularity of Ocasio-Cortez, and they're trying to tamp that down. But isn't that what they've been waiting for? That's what they've grown themselves.
Right, the oppression and suppression of people. Let's go back. All right, so you remember it was the Democrats, the left-leaning liberals that pushed the Jim Crow days, oppress and to suppress people. Now you want to push socialism to oppress and suppress people. This is what they do. And when you mention the electrical college to Cortez or Ortez, whatever her name is, she probably going to think, oh, my God, I'll never send my child to that college. She may think it's a normal college. It's like she don't know her facts. She need to pick up a book and really read. I cannot believe that she has a degree and she don't know certain things that she should know. But this is what they're pushing in our country. And if you all do not like the trajectory that our country is going in, the direction, you all need to take a look at all of this here. That's right. What these left-leaning liberals are trying to push upon us, and that's why in these midterm elections you're going to have to get out, vote right, vote red, vote Republican.
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit more about when you were on the streets for the documentary, talking to people and really going into these communities. And I know, you ladies are so real. You go and you do the kind of work that sometimes the retail politics of individual campaigns, it doesn't get that real. You understand what I'm saying. That there's money to be spent, but sometimes it's just the commercials, and the door knocking is left to little teams of sometimes high schoolers and young college students. But there's nothing more real than having a grown-up who's lived come to you and talk to you about your situation. What was the reaction as you were moving through these communities and talking about the real issues?
Well, people were, first of all, they were shocked, but they appreciate the fact that even though we're conservative, we were able to come to the hood. We were able to go right up to them and talk to them. They appreciated that because sometimes conservatives tend to shy away because they don't want to be called a racist or a misogynist, all of these dirty, nasty names. But see, the more they hate, the more we have to educate. So we went in the hood. We talked to people. We talked to the homeless. We wanted to know what was going on. And it's time to hold Congress accountable. It's time for people to see what's going on. I know the left keep telling people to stay woke. What we're telling people to do is pay attention.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that goes against the normal thing that people are told, which is they don't want to hear from us. What I'm hearing you say is people do want to be approached and discuss, the living conditions.
Right.
Or they want it. They want to hear
accurate information.
Yeah.
As long as you're giving them accurate information, because people didn't know things, and it's time. You know what? Sometimes you got to cut off all that reality TV and stay focused here and pay attention to things. People didn't know. They're just going on with their lives. They know that they can't pay their rent. They know that they're a hair away from being homeless. But then you got the congressmen and women living high off the hog, not even living in these districts. How you going to know the need of the people in your district and you don't even live there with them to experience anything? So it's time for us to call this to light, put this on the table. Now what we going to do about it? What we going to do about it now that we done brought out the truth? We done told you the truth with proof. We're giving you the facts. We're not holding them back. Now what we going to do about it? Now what we going to have to do? If they can't work for us, they're going to have to be voted out.
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about how that dovetails in with the Trump agenda. So you guys were early Trump aficionados. You saw the Trump train coming long before many of us did, and you've been there since day one. So now that we're 2 years in, and I mean, I have been stunned with the performance. I've been stunned with the economic prosperity, the cutting of the regulations, on and on and on. In every area that he's been able to make a move, he's made a move. And in other areas, the obstruction comes from, some of it comes from Republicans, a lot of it from the Democrats, but some from the Republicans. What do you see the Never Trumpers doing going forward? I'm already seeing them, ladies, switching their tune after the Kavanaugh debacle. Now they're starting to realize, look, he's our friend. We need to get behind him. Where do you see them going from here?
Well, you know what? I see them shaping up or shipping out. Either they get with the program or, okay, I can't do this no more, is what I see. I see them straighten up. You listen, the president is draining the swamp. Either you can get behind us because I'm with the American people and I'm working for them, bye-bye. But I really have to commend the Republicans because they really stood up for what they believe, and they didn't fold like paper. You know, we became Republicans back in 2015, September of 2015 to be exact. And, you know, we noticed that the Republican Party, somebody called them a racist, they unfolded. That's it. They just get so scared. But no, when you're right, you fight. And you don't fight with your fist, you fight with facts. You give them facts and give it right back to them. I'm glad when this thing happened with Kavanaugh that they finally stood up and fought back. And look, they won.
And if you ever want to know what's going on with the body of people, check out the head. You know, our President Donald J. Trump, is the head. Look at him. Look at at how he don't have a problem going toe-to-toe against the status quo and calling you right on out. And whenever you put something in front of him and think you're going to fight him with this, no, he's going to fight back. He's going to ask questions. He's going to call you out about that. And it's good to see the Republicans stand together instead of fold and go cold and just sit there and say and shrivel up with the thumb in their mouth and say, well, we're not going to say nothing. It's time out for that. It's time out for us sitting around allowing the Democrats to run amok among this country and run this narrative that our president is a racist and these people are racist and that person is a racist. And then they want to go into this narrative about the white man.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, thank you, Sue, for bringing it up.
Thank you. Thank you. I couldn't agree more.
I feel a little uncomfortable. They talk about the white old Republicans. Is who they're talking about. And what I would like to say to that is, instead of talking about the white old Republicans, how about talking about the white old Democrats, the ones that were slave owners and did not want slavery to end, that raped and abused the slaves? How about talking about that if you want to talk about that? The people that wouldn't come to the table for civil rights. Talk about that if they want to talk about something. Stop talking about white Republicans. Talk about the white Democrats. Why don't you do that?
Because it was the white Republicans that came to the table to abolish slavery.
That's right.
The Democrats that didn't want slavery to end.
That's right. Not only that, it was the white Republicans that came to the table and wanted to make sure that the free slaves had citizenship. That's how we got the 14th Amendment. It was the white Republicans that came to the table and wanted to make sure that all people had the right to vote. So I'm so ticked off that they put this star on the Republican Party. No. Don't put that star on that stench on the Republican Party, because we're now Republicans. You put that where it belongs. That belongs on the Democrat Party. That's where that needs to go.
And so you put it so well. I can't add to it. My last question. We just have about a minute left, and I know you guys have a lot to say on this, but we're almost out of time. But you mentioned the Republicans standing together and finally figuring out that when they stand together, they win. What are you feeling right now, seeing Judge Kavanaugh sitting on the Supreme Court? I've just been riding high. It's just been so good. Where are you guys? Can you even believe it? I'm just so happy that they were able to, hold on and get him there.
Well, first of all, we never wavered. We really stood behind Kavanaugh. I cried with him, not her.
That's right.
I believed his story. It was so compelling. A man with an impeccable record. And for them to take the Me Too movement, politicize it, and use it as a weapon to weaponize that against him, to assassinate him, to just, what they did to try to destroy a man in his name, his impeccable record. So we stood with him from day one. I'm very happy that he's up there on the Supreme Court. And look out. I want everybody to look out, because I see another one.
Me too.
Another pick. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes. That's right. Anytime you fall asleep between sentences, yes, he's going to have another one.
Oh, yes.
That's
right. So true. So true. You guys are so, I'm telling you, I'm just waiting. I'm trying. I've been like, Lord, am I wrong? Because I'm ready. I'm already ready.
Listen, the writing is on the wall.
Yeah.
And if somebody is going to sleep between words, that's a problem.
That's right.
It is. It really
I'm not
is.
laughing at nothing at that. No, that is a problem. If I'm falling asleep between words, something's wrong. I don't need to be doing that job for a lot longer.
That's right.
I'm with you. And so we can expect more winning. And I want to give everybody the website, dummycratsthemovie.com. I just went there. You guys go there, get your tickets, be prepared, take some friends to the theater with you so they can see what's really going on in this country. We can turn it around. Diamond and Silk, you girls, y'all have a fantastic day. God bless. And thank you for your time today. Love you guys. Thank you for coming on. Those ladies they fire me up every time. I'm ready to ride out and make some war in a good way. All right. Listen, what we're going to do is we're going to go to break. And when we come back, we'll take your calls, 866-963-2037, 866-963-2037.
What does it take to live an uncommon life? Here's former Super Bowl winning coach Tony Dungy with today's uncommon moment.
Over half the couples today are living together before they get married, if they get married at all. Why is that? I believe the answer lies in what we think about the marriage vow. The common approach today is to consider the vow to be nothing more than a tradition, or at best, a statement of good intentions. To many people it means, we'll try this relationship out. As long as my spouse is doing what I expect and fulfilling my needs, then I'll show love and respect. But if not, I'll move on. Moving in and out of commitments is common today. Be uncommon. Never enter them or break them lightly.
Tony Dungy, author of the popular Uncommon book series. Discover more at CoachDungy.com. That's CoachDungy.com.
Y'all have encouraged us to go out, stand for the Word of God, stand politically.
It's truly a blessing to hear how God is using Urban Family Talk.
Just want to say I love everything that Urban Family does.
Will you take a moment to share your story? Call 877-327-5647. That's 877-327-5647. Thanks.
Abraham Hamilton III.
God put us in this world at this time to be salt and light. We don't fold because of the darkness that we're facing. This is not the first time in the world's history that it's gotten dark. God has called you and I to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment.
Tune in to the Hamilton Corner, weekdays at 5 p.m. Central on Urban Family Talk.
This is Poll Parade with Fox News Director of Polling, Dana Blanton.
The Senate vote on Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation to the U.S. Supreme Court. It is a big deal. It could swing tight races in Indiana, Missouri, and North Dakota. Our latest round of Fox News State Battleground polls finds voting against his nomination hurts more than helps the Democratic incumbents in those states. Plus, the fight over Kavanaugh might explain increased interest in the election among Republican voters. There's been an uptick in all 5 states we surveyed. Compared to last month, the number of Republicans feeling extremely interested is up by 2 points in Arizona, up 8 in both Missouri and North Dakota, up 9 in Indiana, and up 11 in Tennessee. That erases an edge Democrats had in several states. Republicans in each state are now just as likely as Democrats to say they are extremely interested. And stay tuned. The races are far from settled. Only one candidate has a lead outside the polls' margin of error. I'm Dana Blanton, and that's your Poll Parade.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
I'm not leaving until the end of the year. My goal is that we make sure that everything is in good place and for the next ambassador to come in. But it's a great day in the United States, and I'm proud to have been part of the team. Now, I don't have anything set on where I'm going to go. I think that the main thing was I was governor for 6 years, and we dealt with a hurricane, a 1,000-year flood, a church shooting, a school shooting. There was a lot. And then to come in and do 2 years of Russia and Iran and North Korea, it's been 8 years of intense time, and I'm a believer in term limits. I think you have to be selfless enough to know when you step aside and allow someone else to do the job. So thank you, Mr. President. It's been an honor of a lifetime. And I will say this, for all of you that are going to ask about 2020, no, I'm not running for 2020. I can promise you what I'll be doing is campaigning for this one. So I look forward to supporting the president in the next election.
Welcome back to the program. That was Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, talking about her announcement today where she's decided she's going to resign effective the end of the year. She says she's given 8 years to public service and she needs to take some time off. It's being framed as kind of a hiatus, if you will. And I can understand where she's coming from. She really has accomplished a lot, and she's been just so stellar at the UN. Already trending, Ann Coulter has tweeted out Trump should replace Nikki Haley with Ivanka. They have an image of the dailymail.co.uk, so the UK's Daily Mail, of Ivanka leaving her residence this morning. I don't know if you guys, if you're on Instagram, you can follow accounts that actually show you Ivanka's everyday exit from the house so you can see what she's wearing. And you can also follow accounts that will show you exactly where the outfit that she's wearing is from, so you can buy it yourself, and also a knockoff version that's affordable for us regular folk. So she's got two headliners up there, the tweet from Ann Coulter, and then this Ivanka cuts a demure figure in a $500 pleated skirt. And I got to tell you, Ivanka could probably do the UN ambassadorship. Like, she could probably handle it. It would mean she and Jared would have to move back to New York because the UN is in New York. If I'm not mistaken, isn't that where Nikki Haley works out of? I could be wrong about that. I will quickly Google that while we're talking. Listen, we got callers. So if you want to join our call queue, it's 866-963-2037. Let's go to the phones. Belinda in Mississippi. Hey, Belinda, thanks for calling the show today.
Hi, Stacy.
Hello.
It's good to talk with you.
Good to talk to you, too.
Let me say, if I may first, I would like to thank you for your service. I know you're a veteran. I have been listening to your radio show for several months now.
Thank you.
And I absolutely love the way you are, your personality, your strength, and your independence. You actually think for yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Today, the reason I called was I heard you speaking about Mr. Brian Kilmeade of Fox News being followed home this weekend.
Yeah.
And that was disturbing enough to where it prompted me to call in. And my comment for this is, as much as I have seen these protesters on TV, and I did follow all of the Judge Kavanaugh's wrongdoing, these people have just done the man wrong, period. There's no other way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so proud that he is now our Supreme Court Justice. But as far as the protesting goes, I understand that in our country, everybody has the right to peaceful protest.
Mm-hmm.
What they are doing now is going beyond that. My personal thoughts on this is when we, not just as Republicans, I am a Republican and conservative person, we as people that believe in these rights and believe in our country and what it should be and can be, when we see this happening, we need to come to their assistance. We need to show the people that are protesting and being rude and violent to stop.
I agree.
And I'm not saying come to arms with it, but we can show a sense of strength in numbers.
I agree.
Show the protesters. Protest, yes. Don't harass people that are going about their daily lives. These people are coming in restaurants and disturbing people's privacy.
They really are, and
right.
it's the wrong thing to do. You're right, Belinda, and I agree with you. And thank you so much for calling the show and for listening to the program. I got to tell you, one of the things that I find so disturbing about it is it used to be that if someone was harassing someone else, other people would come to that person's defense. Not so any longer. Mm-hmm. And I think, you make a good point about people standing up, but what those two gentlemen who were the guys who have the streaming show who were attacking Kilmeade, they actually were inciting other people on the subway to yell at Brian Kilmeade. And when they were doing that, then the people started yelling a little bit too, and Brian Kilmeade was on his phone and he just kept turning away. Other people who were sitting there observing should have said, okay, that's enough, because we've seen plenty of live leak video of people saying that's enough, stop doing that. And the others will back down because they realize, oh, I actually am doing something wrong. Thanks for calling the show. Let's go to Jimmy in Florida. Jimmy, thank you so much for calling the show today.
Yes, I do. I appreciate your service, and thank you for taking me on your show. I appreciate it. I just turned it on. I never heard the show before, but I turned it on, and someone was like, President Trump is he racist? He's not racist. I don't know, but I just know the comment that were allegedly said about African countries.
Oh yeah,
and things like that. That's not a good comment.
Okay.
That's not a good comment, and whether he's a racist or not, I don't know, but that's a racist comment.
Okay. So I appreciate you calling into the show, and I want to address what you just said about the comment about the countries. So can we, getting past the language that the president used, because he said something that is identical to what President Obama said, not to justify the use of profanity, but the statement that he made that these are countries that they're not sending their best people, and they're I call them a pit. I'd say these are countries that are kind of like a pit. Are you saying that you'd be just as happy living in Sudan or any one of the 6 countries that were under the travel ban? Are you saying that you'd be fine living in one of those countries as opposed to here? If you had to leave America, you would choose to go to one of those countries instead of going to Germany or Canada or some other place like that?
Let's be real. America, I love America.
Okay.
But he didn't. If he would have said that about, Italy, if he'd have said that about England.
But is Italy a pit? Is England a pit?
You would have those people getting upset.
Well, sure, but those countries are not those countries are not pits, are they? I mean, let's be real here. Telling the truth about another country.
Do you know that there is wealth in Nigeria? You know, Nigeria.
Oh my goodness! Of course I do. Of course I do. But Nigeria wasn't one of the countries that he was talking about. So let's stick to the countries he was discussing. The countries he's discussing are countries that are currently mired in war, that do not have operational consulates with which to vet people who wish to come to this country. And so my question to you is, Jimmy from Florida, would you like to go live in Sudan?
I'm happy living where I'm at.
Yeah, but would you go live there? Would you even go vacation there?
The issue is
you wouldn't. You wouldn't. And so it's about telling the truth.
When you group a whole continent,
it's not the continent. He only talked about specific countries. Specific countries, not the continent. He didn't talk about the whole continent.
He said African countries.
He was speaking specifically of the countries that were under the travel ban. No, it's not. The countries that were under the travel ban are the countries that he was specifically referring to. And the countries under the travel ban are currently war-torn countries sending hundreds of thousands of their citizens to Europe because they can't take care of them. Again, would you go, let's not say live there, would you go vacation there? Would you go to the Sudan for vacation? I'm thinking
Why
no.
Didn't he didn't say Sudan.
Yeah, he did. He specifically said these countries, these African countries that are under the travel ban, and then he made the statement that has offended you. He's talking about specific countries that he did not want to receive refugees from because they couldn't vet them. And whether or not you appreciate the terminology he used, it sounds to me like you, Jimmy from Florida, would prefer to live in America or some other westernized nation and not go to one of the countries that he described. And so I'm all about being real, and Donald Trump is not going to stop talking like that because it offends a few Americans. This isn't about the language he's using. It's about whether or not he's telling the truth. And the truth is, I don't know one American who's offended by his statement who would spend 24 hours in one of those countries that he was referring to. The same countries that were called the exact same terminology by President Obama, and nobody was offended then. So, you know, I'm all about if someone says something that's offensive, I'll get offended. But that particular statement, it didn't offend me in the slightest because those are not countries that I would ever willingly set foot in. I've been to the Middle East. I've been to Saudi Arabia. I've been to Russia back when it was the USSR. I've been to Austria 4 times, Paris, France 4 times, Spain 4 times. I've been to every part of Germany, every part of it, because I grew up there. And then I've been to England, Great Britain. Where else? I've been to Verdun, where our soldiers are buried. I can't even begin to list all of the places on this planet I've been to. Never been to the continent of Africa. The continent of Africa is not a country. There are countries on the continent of Africa. I've never been to one of those. My parents have traveled to Africa. I never have. And I can tell you there are certain places in the Middle East I wouldn't go unless I was under command sponsorship. It's the only reason I went to Saudi Arabia. I had a green ID card and I had a uniform. And I traveled with other people who were armed. And I went there on a C-30 and I went home on a C-30. And everywhere I went, I was under the protection of the U.S. military. Wouldn't go to the Middle East without it. I would not go to the Middle East without command sponsorship. So to answer your question for you, Jimmy, I'm guessing you wouldn't go to Sudan or any of the other countries on the travel ban list because you, like me, you require freedom and certain niceties for your company. And I don't blame you. But there's no reason to be offended. Not only is Donald Trump not a racist, he tells the truth a little bit too much for people to enjoy. Thank you so much for calling the show today. We have time for one more call. Thomas in Missouri. Thomas, thank you so much for calling into the show.
Hey, Stacey. Thank you for accepting my call.
Sure.
I'm a veteran. I retired out of Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Okay. I know where that is.
Oh, I know. We're neighbors.
Yeah. Welcome
but anyway,
to the show.
I was my politics has pretty much been independent. And, in the military I did 28 years, and I thought, I always thought that, I try to vote for the best person possible. Now, I did vote for President Obama twice, and I did, because I thought I felt like he was giving hope when I was listening to his speeches and things, and I went with him. But I thought the first 4 years was enough, so I went the second. But then I saw something that really changed a little bit. All this stuff about misogynists and everybody. You're either that, or you're anti-gay, or you're anti-black, or you're anti-Muslim, and then whites are bad, and I just kind of felt I was trying to feel a little bit of loss. I defended this country, and I love all the people here. I love the diversity, and I've been all over the world like yourself. I've gone all over the places. But I was really elated by Kavanaugh getting in there because I thought, my gosh, that they railroaded him so often.
Oh, it was so bad.
And, and I started thinking, why? They obviously they know this. Why they can't be doing this now? Used to be where the congressmen and senators. My goodness, they never did that kind of thing. There was a line that they never crossed. And they always went to lunch together, after they voted, Democrat and Republican. And now it's like there's the left and there's the right. I'm kind of in the middle. What do I do?
Well, I can understand you being in the middle, quite honestly. There's been a few moments, especially when we have the continuing resolutions with the budget. I say to myself, Republicans, heal thyselves. Like, what are you doing? The continual funding of Planned Parenthood. There's a bunch of different things. And I have friends who are independents, and I understand their perspective. So it's not a place where you're there and people on the right don't get it. I definitely can commiserate with you on people that I know now who voted for Obama once or twice, and their hope was, the first time they were like, this is historic. The second time they're like, oh, he's gonna turn the corner here. He just needs some more time. And I got to say, he didn't need more time. He didn't turn the corner. And for people who are more moderate and looking for someone who's more in the middle, there really isn't anyone there right now. The Democrats are moving further to the left, and the Republicans are just struggling to maintain a position on the right. And so, it's not a place where you're going to find a lot of independence, but I'm hopeful that as we begin to really kind of just return to a moral center, that we can see more people who are willing to be engaged politically without it being a total, utter battleground. I keep hope alive, that I believe in hope. So thank you so much for calling the show today. All right, if you're leaving us now, God bless you from the heartland. Thank you for being here. If you're going to be around a little bit longer, awesome as well. You have onenewsnow.com news and information coming at you right after this music. God bless.
Urban Family Talk.
You only want to donate to biblically sound organizations. So as a federal or state employee, why not choose the American Family Association Combined Federal Campaign Designation 12037? Of the organizations on the CFC list, AFA is one of the few standing for you and your family. By choosing 12037, you help make it possible for us to continue.
Truth. Wisdom. Empowered Urban Family Talk. A ministry of the American Family Association.
For American Family News on the Hour, I'm Chris Woodward. Newly sworn-in Justice Brett Kavanaugh took an active role on his first day on the Supreme Court bench. Fox News Radio's Jared Halpern has more from Washington.
Chief Justice John Roberts welcomed Justice Kavanaugh to the court, wishing him a long and happy career. Kavanaugh's family watched argument. So did retired Justice Anthony Kennedy. Kavanaugh asked several questions about 20 minutes into the first hour of arguments, a case dealing with sentences for crimes considered violent. Outside the court, there were protests, along with more than 100 people who had lined up to watch arguments inside. As the junior most justice, Kavanaugh's duties also include taking notes at a weekly closed-door conference and serving on the court's internal cafeteria committee. In Washington, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
U.S. Ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley has announced her resignation, effective at the end of the year. Haley and President Trump spoke to reporters at the White House about her upcoming departure. Here's Fox's John Roberts.
The president said Nikki Haley will be missed, not only personally, but of course as a tough ambassador to the United Nations.
She got to know China, Russia, India. She knows everybody on a very first-name basis, and they like her.
The American Civil Liberties Union, though, is going to remember Ambassador Haley differently when she steps down, in a statement saying, quote, history books will remember Nikki Haley as a key player in the Trump administration's campaign to undermine universal human rights and international bodies.
President Trump says he plans to nominate Haley's successor in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Hurricane Michael is expected to make landfall in the next 24 hours along the Florida Panhandle and southeastern Alabama. Florida Governor Rick Scott has urged all residents to prepare for the storm and to evacuate, saying that first responders may not be able to assist anyone who remains in their home.
If you're on the fence, don't think about it. Do it. This storm can kill you. Remember, during a storm, first responders, they can't come out in the middle of a storm. They can't come out and save you.
North Carolina's governor says he's afraid Hurricane Michael could slow the recovery for homeowners dealing with wind or flooding from Hurricane Florence. Governor Roy Cooper says that Michael is not expected to hit his state as hard as Florence did last month, but people should not let their guard down even if they're suffering from so-called cleanup fatigue. ABC has brought back its Friday primetime TV lineup featuring family-friendly programming, much to the appreciation of a conservative media watchdog group. We'll get that story from AFN's Bill Bumpus.
Cheers from the Parents Television Council for the network's decision to return to family-friendly shows on Friday. PTC President Tim Winter applauds the move, but still has a warning for ABC.
They need to make sure it really is family-friendly. If they don't, families are going to sample it and turn away and never come back.
Winter does tell AFN that if the programming block is good, quality, family-friendly entertainment, 2 things will happen.
Families are going to watch, and the advertisers are going to love it. Advertisers have told us that they would prefer to sponsor family-friendly entertainment and not sponsor the explicit content, but there's so little family-friendly entertainment, there's just not enough to go around for their advertising dollars. So hopefully this is something that helps families, helps advertisers, helps ABC Disney, all because it's a good business decision to program for families.
Winter also points out that ABC is now directly competing on Friday nights against one of its former family-friendly shows.
It is indeed ironic that ABC canceled Last Man Standing with Tim Allen. It was their highest-rated comedy when they canceled the show.
Now, Last Man Standing is doing quite well on Fox. I'm Bill Bumpus.
And jobs in high-wage industries are growing the fastest. That's according to an analysis of Labor Department data by Moody's Analytics. For years after the Great Recession, the jobs recovery came with a caveat. The fastest employment gains by far were in low-wage industries such as retail and restaurants, which critics griped weren't good jobs. That is American Family News for this hour. For more news and information, visit onenewsnow.com. And don't forget to download the One News Now mobile app for Apple and Android devices.
My name's Tommy. I really tried to do the best I could to be a good husband, to be a father. I couldn't quit using drugs. I was stuck. Since coming here, my life is better. I have hope, and I know I don't ever have to live that way again.
If you know an adult or teenager who's struggling with a chemical addiction, Teen Challenge can help. Call us today at 417-581-2181 or reach us online at teenchallengeusa.com. This is Urban Family Talk.
She's sharp, pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
A man or a woman must always be presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty. And with that, I must state that you, sir, under historic scrutiny, were proven innocent.
I am optimistic about the future of America and the future of our independent judiciary, the crown jewel of our constitutional republic. As a justice on the Supreme Court, I will always strive to preserve the Constitution of the United States and the American rule of law.
The U.S. is strong again, and the U.S. is strong in a way that should make all Americans very proud. It's a great day in the United States, and I'm proud to have been part of the team. Thank you, Mr. President. It's been an honor of a lifetime.
And now, Stacy Washington.
Welcome to the program. I'm so glad to be with you. I think now is a good time for me to give a little, what do you call those, advisory notices, if you will. So I've talked a lot about my parents. My dad was in the Army. My mom worked for the federal government. And so I grew up in a household where there weren't a lot of punches pulled. And by that, I mean there was civility. My mom and dad really had a strong sense of not just what's right and what's wrong, but proper decorum and good behavior. But my dad was an Army man and, military policeman at that. And if you've ever been around military policemen, you know that they're the closest thing that you have to the infantrymen, and the military police are they're the rough guys. They see all of the roughest things. They see all of the crime. The military police see all of the crime that soldiers commit. They have to arrest other soldiers. It's a tough job. And they know about all of the misconduct that soldiers engage in. And then you have the fact that my father went to Vietnam and he served there. He was actually injured there. And so he's my dad is not someone that I would consider to be, he's the opposite of President Obama, if you will, someone who's genteel and, only ever gets upset if it's convenient and, is always righteously indignant and all that stuff. No, not my dad. And so I grew up in a household where, real talk was normal and there weren't any punches pulled. It's just straight up. This is what it is. Here it is. And so in some ways, when I hear President Trump talking, a lot of the things that he has said in the past that have offended people, it's because of the coarseness of the language that he's using. But growing up on military installations and then serving in the military myself, there are multiple tens of millions of Americans who communicate in that way. And so rather than be offended by it, I try to listen for what he's saying because there's a point to it. Surely there's a point because he's taken the time to speak on something. And this comment about these countries, the S-hole comment, has so offended so many Americans because they're focused on what they consider to be an insult, that the fact that he told the truth it's just flown over everybody's head. The fact is, and David Mamet describes this so perfectly in his book, The Secret Knowledge. In his book, The Secret Knowledge, one of the chapters, he describes how he spent a lot of time during his career in Hollywood and his time, in academia around people who have these flowery linguistic poems about certain countries around the world. And they always say that all cultures are equal. But his test for that was to always ask them, let's say America has been completely and utterly destroyed. And there is one flight, there are two flights leaving. And every American has to decide they're either getting on the plane to Western Europe, to Europe. It's now Europe now, no more Western Europe. So they're getting on the plane to Europe, or they're getting on a plane to the Middle East. Which plane would you take? And so, of course, my answer to hypotheticals is always, I don't deal in hypotheticals. But the fact is, deep down in my heart, whether I'm dealing with hypotheticals or not, I know I'd rather go to Canada. I'd rather go to Europe. I'd rather go to Australia. I would not want to go to North Korea or to the Middle East, any part of the Middle East, or to the continent of Africa. And yes, there are civilized, well-developed countries on the continent of Africa. There are beautiful places to visit and to vacation on the continent of Africa. But I mean, where exactly is the plane landing? And am I going with security, or is it just me and the kids? Do we get to take our firearms? I mean, what are the situation here? If it's just me and one suitcase, and I'm taking the first thing smoking, and my husband and the kids, I'm going to want to go to a westernized country. There's a reason for that. And so it to me is so fake and unreal when I hear people say, well, the thing is, all countries are equal. All cultures are equal. No, they're not, because you're not living in one of those other cultures, are you? You're not currently considering emigrating to El Salvador or Haiti. And God bless the people who live there. This isn't about denigrating them. It's about saying that, yes, one thing is better than another. A 26 ounce of your favorite drink is better than a 16 ounce of your favorite drink. A loaded gun, if you're in a dark alley and you see a group of really burly looking dudes coming at you and you're alone, a loaded gun is better than an unloaded gun or a pen. There are things that are better than others. And the idea that simply saying we have too many people coming into this country from unvetted, you call them whatever you want, countries, somehow people have to get triggered about that instead of acknowledging the bus crash in New York. You guys must have heard about this. You've got this extended stretch limousine, and it barrels through a stop sign at 60 miles an hour and kills 2 pedestrians, and all 17 passengers and the driver on board are killed. Now that we're looking at who these people are, not the victims, because the victims are obviously victims, but the owner of the stretch limousine place, cited many times for violations, hails from the country of Pakistan, came into the country illegally but was still able to become a citizen, has been involved in other scams and schemes, should not have owned a business where he's renting out vehicles. Now, does that mean everyone in Pakistan is a horrible person, or that we don't have great Pakistani immigrants here? Of course not. But this matters. One culture doesn't value the rule of law, licensing, doing things that wouldn't endanger the lives of your customers, and one culture does. One culture is clearly better than the other. And so I'm not making a judgment call on whether or not the president should be castigated for his continued use of profanity. That is a personal issue for him. He's the president of the United States. And it is my job to ascertain whether or not the statements he's making are true. And so for the country's statement that he made, that we're receiving too many refugees from these countries, that is true. For the statement that he made that derided those countries for being, not great places to receive immigrants from in large numbers, true again. Now, if that hurts feelings, that's not actually my fault. Remember, the spirit of offense resides with the person who's offended. So if you are offended, or if I am offended about something, let's just put it on me. If I hear someone saying something on the radio or on television and I am offended by it, it is my problem. Now, it could be that what they said or what I saw on television was truly offensive and it shouldn't have been there. That could be. But the choice to be offended by it is mine. And that is something that we really need Americans to grow up on. People are going to say things that we don't like. The question is, why don't you like it? Is it that it offends you because you don't like the person who's speaking? Is it that you don't like what they said because it has the ring of truth to it and you've been saying something different? Or is it because it was truly offensive and should not have been spoken? And that's up for debate, really. If people are going to leak things that are said in private meetings, then they're probably going to, in leaking it, it's because something was said that was incendiary that could make the news cycle, which means everyone who was triggered by it was manipulated. And that's a whole nother segment about people intentionally manipulating the public to get a reaction that they want, and people who are in the public allowing themselves to be intentionally manipulated, giving credence to these people who are manipulating you. Manipulation is a sin. In the Bible, it is a sin. And what I find most offensive about the comment about the countries is not the comment itself or that people think it's untrue, but that people allowed themselves to be manipulated into thinking that, number one, the president's a racist, and number two, that what he said about those countries isn't true. So take from that what you will. I know people just get so upset whenever Donald Trump tells the truth about something. And the response is always, well, he's lying. Well, he's not lying. And anyone who thinks differently, please show me your stub from your plane ticket for your reservations for your next vacation in Haiti, El Salvador, Sudan, really anywhere over there. Show me because if you show me that you vacation there and you spend a lot of time there and that you find it good enough for yourself, then I'll believe you that that the statement was untrue. And yeah, but otherwise, that's your problem, not my problem. I mean, not even close to my problem. So quickly, this votecommongood.com, I mentioned it yesterday, and I got to tell you, I never cease to be amazed by the lengths that liberals will go to try to legitimize their failed experiments all over, the inner cities, as we discussed with Diamond and Silk last hour. Everywhere you look where liberals are in charge, it's failure or us, failure city, the bullet train to failure, failure-rama, whatever you want to call it. So you've got votecommongood.com, votecommongood.com. Let me tell you what it says on this website, because I was like, some people have no shame. Some people actually are out to do evil, and they're doing it. And the rest of us, I guess we just have to, what are we to do? Just, I guess, fight back. We have to tell the truth about what they're doing. So votecommongood.com says flip Congress for the common good. There's something we can do, and November 6th is the way to do it. Vote Common Good is barnstorming the nation, inviting Christians to flip Congress by voting for the common good. Join the movement. Now, you might say, okay, well, flip Congress for the common good? So here's some of the people that they say are the tour speakers and musicians who are helping to shepherd this movement. Nadia Bolz-Weber, Christy Berghoff, Frank Schaefer, Vince Anderson, John Pavlovitz, Shane Claiborne, Brian McLaren, and Jackie Lewis. And there are some others on here. These are the captivating speakers they say will be joining select dates of the national tour. They want to shift the national conversation from fear to faith and flip Congress for the common good. Now, if you're flipping Congress for the common good, and right now we have the lowest unemployment rate for blacks that we've had ever in this country, if we have all of these wonderful things that are going on in the country financially, that are lifting people out of poverty, that are changing the trajectories for families for generations to come, how could flipping Congress help that? Because if certain parties control Congress, what happens? We've already been told. Nancy Pelosi said first thing they're going to do is repeal the tax cut and increase everyone's taxes. And then they're going to start implementing socialist policies. So exactly how does it help to make that change? So they have this what and why page. And on here, they say, we want to dislodge control of Congress from the Republican Party because we believe that this would most directly affect common good in our country. That's our chosen strategy for this midterm. For another election, we may have another strategy, irrespective of party. I don't believe that for 5 seconds. We invite and help voters of faith, our brothers and sisters in so-called red districts, to rise up and vote the heart of our shared faith, faith in spiritual traditions, our country, and one another. Well, the Democrats are for same-sex marriage and for the elimination of religious freedom and the tax increases. I can't get off that. Sorry. So how is a shared spiritual tradition, how does that involve redefining marriage or continuing abortion or any of those things? This is a false attempt to trick and dupe Christians into doing something that goes against the Word of God. Again, I say to you, check the issues and the candidates, their stances, line it up with what God's Word says. Google and Bing and DuckDuckGo are your friend. Make sure you're doing that before you vote. When we get back, we're going to have onenewsnow.com reporters joining in to give us an update.
I'm a local truck driver, and I travel all over North Carolina, the coastal, down in Fayetteville and Lumberton. And, back in Raleigh, we have a radio family that I listen to, and they don't travel out that far. But when I'm in the area, I tune into you guys, and you're like my home away from home for spiritual truth on the radio. I'm a young African-American, 27 years old, married, and we love the Lord. And the only reason why I share that is because people need to know this isn't, a cultural exclusive thing, but this is reaching all people from all stripes, all united under the banner of Christ. And we are now a new race, a new people submitted to the Lord. And I just really want to encourage you guys to continue doing what you're doing. Love what you guys are doing. Be blessed.
Let's impact even more lives. Partner with us for our 3-day share-a-thon starting Tuesday, October 16th here on listener-supported Urban Family Talk.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
These last few weeks have provided all of us with an education about memories. How well do we accurately recall events that took place decades ago? What have scientists discovered about true and false memories? We may never know how many of the memories that have been cited and even presented in the Senate Judiciary Committee are accurate, but we do have some data that suggests that the memories of people who testify in trials are often not as accurate as we might believe them to be. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus is a cognitive scientist and law professor who has studied the subject of memory for the last 4 decades. On my radio program, I cited one study of 300 people in this country who went to prison for crimes they did not commit. They were later exonerated by DNA evidence, and of those 300 who were imprisoned, 3/4 of the convictions were the result of false memories. Now, this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who has followed other stories in the news. You might remember the story of Jackie that appeared in the pages of Rolling Stone. She claimed that she was gang raped at a fraternity at the University of Virginia. The story was not true, and Rolling Stone had to apologize and remove the story. Dr. Loftus has found that it is even possible to implant false memories. Her research team, while guided by an ethics committee, was able to plant in participants all sorts of false memories. For example, being attacked by an animal or witnessing a demonic possession. Various other researchers have discovered the same problem with memories. They suggest that our brain pulls together pieces of memory and sometimes creates memories of events that never took place. This doesn't mean that we should never trust memories, but it does mean that if you're on a jury or if you're watching people recounting something from their past, you should be skeptical and look for corroborating evidence. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Take Kirby and the Point of View team with you on the go with the Point of View app. Search for Point of View Radio at the Apple or Google Play stores.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us today. And it's my pleasure to welcome News Director for American Family News, Fred Jackson. Fred, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Good afternoon, Stacy. Good to be with you.
It's great to have you here. There's so much breaking news today. Ambassador Haley making her announcement about her moving on after the end of the year. And then, of course, Associate Justice Brett Kavanaugh making his debut at the Supreme Court as well. Let's talk about some of this breaking news.
Yeah, just when you thought the whole Kavanaugh controversy was kind of dying down, he had the formal swearing in last night at the White House, and we were ready to take a breath and say, okay, we'll maybe get a day off from hard news. And then around 9 o'clock this morning, Central Time, we get word that the U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, was stepping down, and that the president was going to have some words to say on that from the White House around 9:30 this morning. Well, all of that happened. It was a shock. No one saw it coming. In fact, there was a bit of a joke out there this morning that the White House has had some problems with leaks, but Fox News, listening to them, they said they talked to their sources inside the White House. Everybody was kind of shrugging their shoulders. They didn't know anything about this, why Nikki Haley was stepping down. Anyway, the president and Nikki Haley appeared together at the White House this morning, and it sounds very simple. Nikki Haley apparently had a chat with the president back about 6 months ago. She said that, she thought it was time for her to take a break from public service. Of course, prior to being the UN ambassador, she was Governor Nikki Haley of South Carolina for 6 years, and some tough things happened there in South Carolina, and she was given credit for really handling those tragedies well in South Carolina. And then, of course, she was one of those who was interested in running for president, and she, that didn't go too far. She initially, I think, endorsed Marco Rubio for that. And then eventually, I guess she and Donald Trump mended their ways very quickly, because she was one of the first appointees to the cabinet, and she has been absolutely terrific. I think conservative Christians in the country welcome what she has done. She was so different from Barack Obama's UN ambassador Samantha Powers, who you will remember was certainly no friend of Israel, did not speak up, and when it came to issues of China and Iran and other issues such as that, it seemed that Samantha Powers was simply doing the bidding of Barack Obama, and so when Nikki Haley came in there right off the bat, she took charge. She let the United Nations know she wasn't going to put up with the way that Israel has been treated over the years, and she put the UN Security Council on notice. She wasn't going to put up with their bad behavior, and she went in and she took charge, and she laid down the markers, and she has stood by that. So I think she has the respect. Not everybody in the UN certainly agrees with her stand, but she certainly has the respect of people at the United Nations.
I think she's been a stellar representative for our country there, because she's been so much of the voice of Americans, like everyday Americans who truly value our relationship with Israel and with its leadership, and that recognize the importance of that relationship. Were really left out in the cold during the Obama years, and now here we are with, she's just been a standard bearer, really. I mean, she's been so firm and so completely professional, but when she gets on a tear and she has to take a country to task, it's not only newsworthy, but it's an example of what the left claims they really care about, Fred. Empowering women in charge, that whole thing. And she's been so phenomenal. Like Condoleezza Rice and other women on the right before her, she'll never get her just due. But we as Americans have seen her work. I've really admired her stance at the UN, and her deportment is that of a woman who's off to have lunch with girlfriends or go to high tea. But when she starts talking, you realize this woman's not here for snacks. She's here to do business for the United States. So who do you think follows her on there? I'm at a loss.
Well, I tell you, it's interesting. Just before coming into the studio to chat with you, I was listening to not a news conference. It was President Trump at his best. He did what we call a scrum with reporters on his way to the helicopter. He's got a big event in Iowa tonight. And so he stopped and talked to reporters. He is the most, we've talked about the tension between Donald Trump and the media. But, he makes himself available to the media more than any president that I've ever seen. And he seems to actually enjoy it. And so
I do too. Fred, yeah. I enjoy it. Oh, it's so good when he just says, hey, let's take some questions. It's gold every time.
He's not a politician. You ask me the question, I'll tell you how I feel about things. That's his attitude. It's wonderful. But he was asked about possible replacements for Nikki Haley. By the way, he did say that Nikki Haley, of course, she's going to stay in the job until the end of the year. And he did say that she will be helping him in discerning who would be a good person to replace her at the United Nations, and that's a good thing. Now, one of the names that has come up is Dina Powell, and Dina Powell was served as Deputy National Security Advisor for Strategy for the Trump administration early on in his administration, and he was asked about her, and he said she would be excellent, and that she is on the list already. Oh. Now, we just learned this afternoon, I was reading some press reports, apparently, that Dina Powell went down to South Carolina and spent the weekend with Nikki Haley down there last weekend. Shows a little picture of them out boating. Their husbands are with them, and they're out boating. So maybe that's a possibility there. Trump is very high on her. But the other name that's been floated out there is going to cause some concern for we Christians. His name is Richard Grenell.
I saw that. I saw it on Twitter.
Yeah, he's the current U.S. ambassador to Germany. He spent time at the UN under the Bush administration. Apparently, he's a good friend of John Bolton. But the thing that's going to disturb our audience, Stacey, is that he is an open homosexual.
Yeah, and that's a problem for religious freedom.
Oh,
and we don't need him at the UN either, because most countries don't have the same stance that we have on that.
Absolutely. Now, he may be a friend of Israel, according to reports, and, conservative in some of his politics, but he's an open homosexual. So we'll have to wait and see on those. Those are two names that have been out there. Now, the other one was floated out there, and I think maybe people are having some fun, is Ivanka Trump.
Mm-hmm. I talked about that when I saw that on Twitter, too. I was like, she looks so cute in her outfit today, because they follow her outfits on a daily basis. I like that. I think that's really awesome, because she was a model before. But and she probably could handle the job, but Ivanka's not as conservative as you and I, Fred.
No, she's not. And, she's a smart lady. There's no question about that. And certainly she would have the trust of the president, but there's this issue of nepotism and there are some rules on that. So I think that's a bit of gossip out there right now. I think he'll be sticking with, and I'm hoping at this point, I don't know who the other candidates are, Nikki Haley. Someone I mentioned, I was asked a question earlier on today's issues here at American Family Radio, and just a name that kind of popped into my mind, and that's Mike Huckabee.
He's my friend. I like Mike Huckabee. So I got to go on his show, and he actually spent some time chatting with me, which was so nice, because, he didn't have to do that. And we talked about his daughter, because we're both her biggest fan. And then we were just chatting, really just kind of just a few minutes. And he would be outstanding. Oh, he'd be so good. But he's got that great TV show. He can't do the show and also do the UN, so some's got to give. But I know he would serve his country if he were tapped to do that job.
Oh, great friend of Israel. Yeah. And, I look at how his daughter performs each day in front of that hostile media. She handles herself, Sarah Huckabee Sanders handles herself so well, and I've often said she's a chip off the old block.
She is. I mean, that's some strong, whatever they got going on over there at Huckabee Land, that's strong stuff. It's good stuff. I'm really excited that he would even be like, Fred, you should send a note to the president. Let him know that we like this idea. This is good.
I'll drop the hint.
We can always hope. So, quickly, we were just talking about Kavanaugh briefly, and today was his first day. He actually waited until everyone else spoke, and then he asked questions. And I'm just so excited that he's there. And we have no guarantee that he'll be the hard right justice that you and I would hope for, overturning Roe v. Wade and all of that. But we do have the assurance that he's going to stick to the Constitution and not try to create new law. I'm just wondering, how much stamina do you think these protesters have? Do you see them still there 3 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now?
They were out today. There was a small contingent, but I think that will dissipate. I think the focus of the Democrats now, we're 4 weeks away from the election as of today, and you'll see some protests out here and there. That profile, they're paid protesters. They're getting the money from the millionaires that support the Democrats, and so they'll be out there doing their thing. But as far as protest in front of the Supreme Court, that issue, if I was a Democrat, it's not a winner for me to keep talking about possible impeachment. I'm sorry, that is not a winning issue. It's not going to happen anyway. And I think people have fatigue, quite frankly, over the whole Kavanaugh issue right now. And so I think they're going to move on to other things. So I don't see the kind of protests that we've seen in Washington over the last couple of weeks. I think that's going to die down.
I couldn't agree with you more, Fred, about the fatigue. In fact, I think they're entering a place where most Americans understand a midterm is coming and that they have to put up with these ads on TV and on the radio for 4 more weeks. Yeah. But afterwards, if there doesn't some semblance of a return to normalcy begin to appear on the horizon, Americans are going to start to want to punish people who won't let them live without politics. Like there's people like you and I who this is what we do, and we're fine with it. And then there's everybody else. And everybody else is like, midterms or not, I gotta have some time where I'm not looking at politicians' faces or listening to them. So I've had a couple guests on who've talked about this whole pre-existing conditions thing that the Democrats are running on. In other words, Obamacare's main saving grace, the only reason people want it to stay around, is that it keeps people who have pre-existing conditions from being denied health insurance. And they're saying the Republicans want to take that away. What's the truth on that, and how winning of an issue is that going to be?
Well, they'll try it like they do with other issues, but I have not seen that as part of the agenda of the Trump administration to get rid of pre-existing conditions. I think what we're going to see is, and we're already starting to see this. I'm hearing reports that, for instance, premiums are going to start to go down, and that is, and people are going to realize that there was so much misreporting about the so-called benefits of Obamacare that we saw over prior to the election of Donald Trump. A lot of people still didn't realize, and still don't realize unless you're applying for something under the exchanges, the levels of deductibilities for Obamacare premiums. We're talking $6,000 in deductibilities. And so a lot of people, they have a little card that says they have insurance, but then they go to their doctor's office, and the doctor's office says, well, you're going to have to pay the first $6,000 or whatever bills that we have for you. And that was sticker shock for a lot of folks. And so I think that is something the president is trying to do when he was on the campaign trail in 2016. What he wanted to do, one of the things he wanted to do, is remove the state line border, the border issue, so that you could buy insurance, health insurance, outside your own state. Right. And so that is one thing. He's a businessman. He's all about increasing competition, which we know the history of capitalism is when you increase the competition, prices go down. It's kind of interesting. One of the things he talked about reporters with is the big announcement he's going to make on ethanol when he gets to Iowa this evening. Okay. And he says it's all about more energy out there, and he says it will bring prices down. This is what he is about. This is a man who became president not because he wanted power and money. He had all of that. He really, I do believe, wants to help America. Who'd want to take that job when you're a billionaire? Why would you want to take the job of President of the United States with a conservative agenda? Why would you want to do that?
It's a step down, Fred.
It's a step down.
For him, it was a step down.
And he knows the media is going to attack him on everything he does, and that is exactly what has happened. But, he has got tremendous stamina. I remember when it was his personal doctor, Dr. Jackson, who was going to be, I think, the Surgeon General until he stepped away from that. But I remember when Dr. Jackson gave his first report on the president's health, he talked about the amazing ability of President Trump to go to bed at night, get to sleep, and get up the next day fresh and ready to go at it. He doesn't carry yesterday's problem into the next day. And I think there's something biblical in all of that. A good lesson for all of us.
Oh, it is. For insomniacs like myself, I only dream of that. I just that my mind is always racing. If I wake up for any reason, then I'm awake. I'm like just even more awake than I am right now. It's crazy. And so I had a friend that we pray together, and she said, it's probably we're under attack because we're doing this. So we just have to keep going. And I agree. But I find President Trump to be, there are the parts of him that, like any person, I kind of like, wow, that's not advisable, President Trump. Why are we going in this direction? With some of his statements and language and things like that. But when I take him in his totality, and like you said, it is always in the back of my mind that if I were a multi-billionaire who was popular with Republicans and Democrats and had a life that there's no one on the planet who wouldn't want to switch with me, taking the kind of step down, because it's not really a step. It's like he leapt off of, one of those craggy cliffs with, no safety net below to get down there to do the job of president, which all of us esteem very highly, but is much less lucrative than what he was doing before. When you look at his actions in that light, he's killing it. I mean, he's just doing a stellar job. You know, Fred, thank you so much for joining us today. We have to talk on a weekly basis at minimum to keep up with what's going on at onenewsnow.com.
Amen. Great to be with you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Take care.
All right, we'll be right back.
I'm Will Addison, Director of Urban Family Talk. We desire to be a movement of time tellers. In 1 Chronicles 12:32, it says, "The sons of Issachar were men who had understanding of the time, to know what Israel ought to do." In these perilous times, God is raising up a people of discernment who will see, pray, and act. We sound the alarm as watchmen. We cry aloud that God's people may be activated for his service. Join the movement at urbanfamilytalk.com.
Hey, have you called in to share your testimony about how God has been a blessing in your life? If not, what are you waiting for? Share-a-thon is almost here. Stop whatever it is that you're doing and call 877-327-5647. God is too good for us to just sit there and not tell others about his goodness and his mercy. Simply call 877-327-5647. We can't wait to hear from you.
Equipped with Chris Brooks.
This program is an apologetic endeavor. What I want to do is really train you in the art and science of defending and commending your Christian faith to people who maybe they've been hurt by the church, maybe they don't believe like you believe, and you're saying to yourself, how do I have an effective conversation with them? Well, we're looking for an evangelistic edge, if you will, that will allow us to more effectively, more contextualize the gospel so that we can reach men and women for Christ. Quite often, the on-ramp, if you will, is looking at culture and taking advantage of the conversations that folks are already having and saying, how can I leverage this to get people to talk about Jesus? This show becomes kind of massively significant to you if your desire is to reach people for Christ.
Get equipped with Chris Brooks.
Join me Monday through Friday at noon Central Time on Urban Family Talk.
This is Fox on Justice. An accusation of sexual assault by a high school student, followed by vehement denials. But this alleged assault didn't happen decades ago. It was just last year when 5 girls at Seneca Valley High School outside Pittsburgh accused a male student of at least 2 sexual assaults. He was charged with indecent assault, but as the investigation unfolded, it turned out the girls had invented the allegations. It never happened. Asked why she did it, one girl said, "I just didn't like him." Now the boys' parents have filed a federal lawsuit against the parents of the girls, the school district, and the prosecutor. The parents' suit claims their son was held in custody, was subjected to bullying in school. At one point, they claim someone taped the word predator onto his back. The lawsuit also accuses the school of gender bias, saying the school took no action against the false accusers, even after the charges were dropped. No comment from the defendants. With Fox on Justice, Hank Weinblum, Fox News.
You can download episodes of Stacy on the Right from the podcast page on AFR.net or UrbanFamilyTalk.com. Now, back to the show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
It's weird. Last week, Brian Kilmeade was harassed on the street by 2 Netflix employees who followed him all the way to the subway, then got onto the subway, and this is where it gets really bad and dangerous. They encouraged subway riders to harass Kilmeade. So it got almost to an unsettling, violent point where they were, get this, instilling a mob, crucify him. That's what they were yelling. And I guess Netflix is the role of Pontius Pilate because they enable this sort of thing. The Democrats need to take the leadership role here and tamp down the rhetoric because you're going to end up, the Dems are going to lead their supporters to a Waterloo. If you're going to end up in a hostile situation, the side that can defend itself always wins. And you saw the McGregor fight where you saw these guys fighting and there were casualties. And why? Because you never know what a stranger can do. So when you're following a guy home and you're spitting on people, you never know who that person is.
And that is wisdom from Greg Gutfeld on the 5. They were talking about this awful, awful treatment of Brian Kilmeade. And, you know, people have been saying how nice he is, what a kind person he is. But even if he was like, you know, the coworker that nobody wanted to sit with, he still doesn't deserve this. You don't deserve to be harassed for doing your job during the day on your way home after work. And so they're in New York where no one really has to worry about people being armed at large because very few people there have concealed carry permits. But everywhere else in the country, especially here in the Midwest, my advice to these unhinged, deranged individuals is to echo Greg Gutfeld and say, you don't know the person you're harassing. They might have been training on Krav Maga. They might, have a punching bag in their basement, and they might be very, very able to deliver a beat down to you. And I'm not recommending that, but I am saying that self-defense is a right in this country. And it's one thing to incite a mob of people to say mean things to someone else. It's wrong. It should never happen. But you don't know if the people that you're inciting to this violent rhetoric will stop with just yelling mean things at him. How do you know someone you incite to yell at someone else won't then take it to the next step and throw a punch? And how many people are in jail serving time for manslaughter charges because they got in a brawl and punched somebody the wrong way and that person died? This is dangerous behavior, and it has to stop. I just keep reading online on some of these websites where good people are saying it probably won't stop until someone fights back and someone else is killed. God forbid. God forbid that has to be where this goes before people come to their senses and shake it off. And yes, that's a Taylor Swift reference to her thinking she has any political opinions that we're interested in. I didn't half like her music before. Now that she's outed herself as a liberal and really she's just saying, I don't want half of the country to buy my music. And you know what I say to that? Okay, I'll oblige you. I won't buy your music. And nobody at this house will. Nobody who has any accounts that buy music will buy any of your music as long as those accounts are connected to this household. You're welcome, since that's what you want to do. So Mitch McConnell outlined the two most pivotal moments in the Kavanaugh accusation and how they really changed the direction of how things were going. And I thought this was insightful because he was in one of those press briefing rooms, and it was a local TV avail. So it was interviews by reporters that he knows well that have been interviewing him for decades, and they're from his home state. And so here he is in number 2.
I'd rather not talk about security publicly, but I think the tactics were very helpful to me in unifying our side. I think there were 2 things that inspired our people to confirm this nominee. 1, presumption of innocence. There was no corroborating evidence. Number 2, the tactics were designed to intimidate. Look, I know the difference between peaceful protesters and people who are trying to get in your face and try to intimidate you and scare you. We've got a few experiences here in Louisville that you all have covered. I'm more used to it than most of the rest of my members are not subjected to that kind of thing. So I think those were the 2 things that really helped us succeed. And I think it was an important moment for the country. I know everybody doesn't see it the same way, but that's the way I see it.
And he's right. This sentiment has been echoed again and again and again. And so when you're looking at a war, if you will, or you're debriefing an event and you're going back and you're kind of going over the high points, the low points, where it went off the rails, how did we lose, how did we get to this point? For people on the left side of the political aisle, it's instructive to listen to what he just said. At some point during the process of trying to destroy Brett Kavanaugh, they've now admitted that was their tactic, that was their aim. When they were working on doing this, they went too far. And in going too far, instead of working towards their own aim, they began to help their opponent. We've all been there. How many times have you been to a basketball game where someone that after halftime where they've switched baskets, someone goes and puts the ball into the basket they were putting the ball into previously, and then their team members are like, what are you doing? They helped the other team. The points still count. And so then that person is appropriately chastened and embarrassed, and they don't do it again. But that's not what happened here. We saw a continuation of it. It was as if they said, we piled on a bunch of accusations on Herman Cain, and he didn't make it. We got rid of him, so we'll just do the same thing with Kavanaugh. And let's make each accusation more outrageous than the one before. We don't need any corroboration. We just need the accusations. What they weren't prepared for was that Americans have already hip to that game, and they didn't have the wind at their backs. Now, I'm not the only one saying this. Mitch McConnell's not the only one saying this. You have a Democratic congressman saying this. He said Democrats went a little bit too far on Kavanaugh. It's number 6.
In general, we have to find a way to work together. And this back and forth between two parties on a continual basis, that's part of the reform I want to see. The Democrats, I thought, went a little bit too far. We're supposed to ask probing questions. I don't like it. I never did like it when people got up there and pontificated time and time again about their position. This is supposed to be about a discussion back and forth between you and the nominee.
And it is. And it wasn't. It's supposed to be, but it wasn't. And I think that's what was so infuriating for people. And so a part of this whole discussion is, if Democrats were really opposing Brett Kavanaugh because of his stances, then that means there's got to be someone that could be nominated that they would say, okay, in our role of advice and consent, we could say this person is qualified and therefore could be seated on the Supreme Court. The Republicans aren't going to nominate a Democrat. And so obviously it has to be someone who is more conservative. And so someone has to be able to be approved by the Democrats, unless they're saying that the Republicans don't have the right to place conservative jurists on the court. I believe that's what they're saying. But Lindsey Graham went so far as to dare Chuck Schumer to show him one judge from Trump's list that he would be willing to vote for. It's number 1.
We were talking before we came on the air, and I see that you have a list of all the people that the president has said are on the list for potential nominees.
Yeah.
What's your point?
Well, here's my point. This is a list that was compiled in November, but he actually put it out during the campaign. There are 20-something people on this list. I'm asking Chuck Schumer, name 5, name 3, name 1 that would be okay with you. Brett Kavanaugh was a mainstream judge. I would have chosen him if I'd been president. Bush supported him. Everybody running for president on our side believed that Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch were outstanding conservative jurists. The other side wants to cancel the election. So, Chuck, you want somebody new. Look at this list and see if there's anybody you agree to. But what you want to do, Senator Schumer, is to overturn the election. And you pick the judges. We're not going to let you pick the judges. If you want to pick judges, then you need to win the White House. When Obama won, I voted for 2 judges that he picked. So, Chuck Schumer, name 1 person on this list you think's acceptable.
I don't know where this Lindsey Graham has been all my life. But thank you, Lindsey Graham. Real Lindsey Graham? Is this the real you? Will the real Lindsey Graham please stand up? Whoever this Lindsey Graham is, please don't ever go away. And also, thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. This is outstanding. I'm so glad that he's back. Thank God. So he's made a great question. Chuck Schumer will never answer it. Notice Democrats never answer. When you ask them a direct question about an issue, they're never going to answer you because they know they're wrong. They have to pivot to race. They have to pivot to something else you said. They have to pivot to some generalization. They can't answer the question. And it's just universal. You just never get a straight answer out of them. They just can't. Why would they bother giving you a straight answer when they can continue to harp on untrue statements? So I've been watching, and we'll have tomorrow on the show some audio of Hillary Clinton. She and her husband are back. They're doing a tour of some sort, a listening tour or some kind of chatting tour where she and her, an evening with Bill and Hillary Clinton, that's what it's called. They're going to be running around the country, enthralling people with their bad ideas. And Hillary's already hacking her way across campuses across the country. She's been coughing and, all that jazz. And I got to say, it's like, what? What, Hillary? So instead of just staying home when you don't feel well, she's out and about. And also there's all these pictures of her. She's got something on under her clothes. People are calling it a back brace. I don't think it's a back brace. I think she's wearing a bulletproof vest. And, they make better bulletproof vests than that. They make the ones that work but are also not as bulky. And with all the money she's got, she should be able to get her hands on one of those. But regardless, she's back. And so we'll be talking about that. We'll have some audio. I know your face has got to be just like, if you're listening to this, and you're in your car, you're at home, whatever you're doing, live streaming, whatever, your face has got to be just like, what did she say? I'm sorry. I'm apologizing not because I have anything to do with the Clintons, but because this is the kind of news that I really don't like to report. I've been hoping for just years now that the Clintons would go into retirement and only appear occasionally like the Bushes. The Bushes seem to be so happy. I've not been happy with George Bush's comments on immigration, but he is very, very, very much a rhino on immigration. But I've at least respected the fact that he and Laura, they've done so many other kind of fun things. He's done the Wounded Warrior Project. He's done those, it's like a triathlon that Wounded Warriors do where they travel across the country. They ride bikes, they swim, it's just an amazing feat to watch these guys. Some of them, they have limbs missing from combat, and he goes right with them. And George Bush is no spring chicken, but he gets right out there with them and rides bikes for 3 days, and he camps out with them. I mean, real camping, no showers, no cabins, none of that stuff, just camping, staying outside and hugely, hot temperatures, and spending the night and cooking out over a fire and just getting that camaraderie going. He also took up painting. And I'm only highlighting these items because, Hillary Clinton could do these things too. She could take up these kinds of hobbies too. She doesn't have to spend time around Bill Clinton if she doesn't want to. It's a free country. She could do whatever she wants. In fact, she could take the Cry of the Hidden Heart Bible study, and she could revamp she and Bill's marriage, and they could spend their twilight years together rediscovering the thing that they never had, which was a good marriage. I mean, there's so much that they could be doing besides continuing to plague the American people with their presence and their inane statements. And so I just warn you, gird your loins for tomorrow, because tomorrow I'll have audio of her. She's back out making comments about, of all things, someone who's been accused of sexual assault, Brett Kavanaugh. She's talking about that with a straight face, as if her husband didn't pay damages to women that he sexually assaulted, as if her husband wasn't impeached for lying about a sexual relationship with an intern in the White House, as if she didn't man and control the bimbo eruption squads of private investigators used to tamp down on accusations by women who'd had relationships with her husband. But she's going to come out and talk about Kavanaugh? I know. Again, apologies. My apologies. She's never going away. And I just keep wishing for it. And I'm a human being too. I just wish she would. Her and Bill and Chelsea, all of them. They have so much money. I think that's what I can't understand. Having that kind of money and not finding something to do besides going around and talking about politics. And I'm not saying that I only do, political talk because I don't have the money to do anything else. I'm doing this because I love doing it. But I also know, like Nikki Haley said, when it's time to quit. You have to know when it's time to quit. It's an honorable thing to say, it's quitting time, going on to do something else. That is totally an honorable thing to be able to do. And don't you just wish that Hillary Clinton would bump into Nikki Haley and they would chat, and Hillary would be like, wow, so you're stepping down just to take a break? Maybe I should do that. And then Nikki Haley would be like, try it. You'll probably be happy. And then Hillary would go, yeah, I've never been happy. And then she'd say, I'm going to try it. And then she'd tell Bill, and he'd say, oh, about time. Yeah, I'm with you. And then they would just stop coming in public. And I'd be so happy. All right. Good night from the Heartland. Be back with you tomorrow. God bless.